Hey you, Earthling over there watching this video, it's Black-Gloved Bandrew. Today I'm back with a review of the Tudor Black Bay 58. You already know that though, because you saw the title, you've probably watched a bunch of reviews of this already, but this is my take on a review of this watch because the internet needs to know my opinion too. Let's talk about the build quality. First up, with the watch sized up for my 18-ish centimeter wrist on the stainless steel bracelet, it comes in at 137 grams. The case diameter is 39 millimeters. The case thickness is 12.3 millimeters. The lug to lug comes in at around 47.5 millimeters. And the lug width is 20 millimeters. The water resistance on this watch comes in at 200 meters, and that is thanks to a screw-down crown as well as a screw-on case back. You can see that from the rear. The crystal on this is a nicely domed sapphire crystal. The entire case is going to be made out of stainless steel. The bezel is also made out of steel, but it does have an anodized aluminum insert, and it is a unidirectional bezel with a 60-click action, so you're only getting on the minute mark there. You're not going to get anything in between. And as far as the bezel alignment, I have no issues. It seems to be dead on. The bracelet on this watch is also going to be stainless steel, and it tapers from 20 millimeters at the case down to 16 millimeters right before the clasp, and then at the actual clasp, it jumps back up to 18 millimeters. The clasp does have a fold-over security bit to keep it from popping open while you're wearing it, and it is pretty easy to open, and there you go. Pretty straightforward functionality there. And on the clasp, you do get 3 holes of micro adjust. And lastly, if the manufacturing location matters to you, this watch is made in Switzerland. Then as far as the finishing of this watch, the entire top of the case is going to be brushed, and very nicely brushed at that. Then we have a high polished chamfer edge which runs along the entirety of the case to transition from that brushed top of the case to the high polished sides. And on that note, both sides of the case are going to be high polish, and that will lead to a lot of scratches, as you can see on my watch. Just tons of scratches all over the place. Then if we take a quick look at the screw down crown, you can see that it is signed with the Tudor Rose, which looks really, really nice. The case back on this watch is nothing to write home about, and they have even omitted the typical spec sheet that watch brands love to throw on there. You're not getting anything on this case back. Then if we take a closer look at the bracelet, we'll find that the finishing mimics that of the case, where the top of the bracelet is brushed really nicely, and then the sides of the bracelet are going to be high polish. And I know this is a very touchy subject, but the side of the bracelet does have faux rivets. The finishing on the clasp also matches that of the watch's case, where the top is going to be brushed and the sides will be high polished. You can see that the fold-over security clasp is signed with the Tudor name. And when we open the clasp up, you'll also find Tudor signed on the inside as well. Then the finishing on this bezel is absolutely gorgeous looking. It is that anodized aluminum which allows them to offer this matte black finish, which you won't be able to get with ceramic, I don't think. The printing all the way around the bezel is what they call pink gilded. I would say it's gold, but I'm also colorblind, so don't take my word for it. We do have graduated markings from 0 to 15, and after that we only have printed markers at 5-minute increments. And we do have a red triangle at 12 o'clock in the bezel with a nice lume pip. Then we have the dial, which again, I think looks absolutely amazing. It is going to be matte black, and all of the printing is going to mimic that of the printing on the bezel, so I'm assuming they would call it pink gilded. I would call it gold though. Along the exterior of the dial, you will find a pretty basic printed on minute track. Inside of that, you will find applied indices at every hour marker. You'll have rectangle markers at 3, 6, and 9, an elongated triangle at 12 o'clock, and then you have circle indices everywhere else. Then if we zoom in a little bit and look below the 12 o'clock marker, you'll see that we have the Tudor shield printed, and then beneath that shield we have Tudor and Geneve. Then if we look just outside of the minute track at 6 o'clock, they have sneakily hidden Swiss made there. If we look above the 6 o'clock index, you'll see 200 meters or 660 feet, second line saying chronometer, and lastly, officially certified. Then we get to the handset, which I believe is quite a contentious topic on this watch, but I fall into the camp of absolutely loving it. All three of the hands are made of a high-polished rose gold, which matches that of the indexes. The minutes hand is a baton-style hand. The seconds hand is a lollipop-style hand, but instead of a circle, it has a diamond. And then you have the hour hand, which is the most contentious hand on this watch. It is what is called a snowflake hand for obvious reasons, and I absolutely love it. All of the hands applied generously with Lume, which we will test a little bit later, and there you go. Then as far as the movement in this watch, it uses a Tudor in-house MT5402, which is an automatic movement. It also offers hacking and hand wind. Hacking meaning when you pull the crown out, you get the seconds hand to stop, which I am demonstrating right now. The movement is also 27 joule. It beats at 28,800 beats per hour. It has a 70-hour power reserve, and after 6 months of wear from me, I was getting between 0 and -5 seconds a day. And here's a quick look at the lume on the watch. You can tell that there is plenty of lume applied to all of the hands and all of the indexes. It is easy to find the orientation of the watch. Thanks to all the different styles of indices on the dial, the hands are all easy to differentiate as well, and if you are using the bezel, you do have a little bit of a lume pip right there at the 12 o'clock. Now here's a quick look at the watch on my 18-ish centimeter wrist. I think this size is nearly perfect, a relatively compact lug to lug. You have that nice 39 millimeter diameter, which works really well on smaller wrists. I'll rotate around so you can see the height. It is 12 mil thick, 12.5 mil thick. It looks thicker than it actually wears. That's something that I noticed with this, but I'll go ahead and rotate around. There you go, the signed buckle, rotating back around, stopping so you can see the height one last time, and rotating and ending back at the front of the watch. I'm talking like I'm reviewing a microphone. I'm rotating around to the front of the microphone. I'm stuck in my ways. Now let's get to the more subjective part of this review, and we'll start with the pros. The first thing that I enjoy about it is the build quality. It feels incredibly well put together, it feels incredibly robust, and given the price tag, I want my watch to feel like that. I want to be sure, or at least feel as though I am not going to break it just by wearing it. Secondly, the sizing of this watch is superb. That is one of the most common compliments about this watch. The 39 mil diameter, the 47.5 mil lug to lug, it just works on a plethora of wrists, and I think that is one of the biggest selling points about this watch. Then the lume on this watch works really well. I've even been able to wake up in the middle of the night and tell the time. The accuracy on my watch in particular was pretty darn good. 0 to -5 seconds after 6 months of wear is nothing to sneeze at. I love the 70-hour power reserve as well. This is one of those situations where you put it on your dresser, you may forget to put it on, and you don't have to worry about having to reset the time. Really a great feature there as well. And the last pro for me are the looks of this thing as I rotate the watch around and show you the boom arm and the reflections of all the lights in my studio. But this thing is gorgeous. I love the vintage aesthetic, and I love the bezel in particular. I know that technically a ceramic bezel would be superior because it's harder to scratch, it will last longer, it won't fade, but I prefer this more vintage aesthetic, this matte black anodized aluminum. Everything about this watch just works for me. And then as far as cons, there's only one thing that sticks out to me, and that is the thickness of the watch. 12.5 millimeters isn't technically thick, but when we compare this to the Diver 65, the Diver 65 is thicker than the Tudor Black Bay 58, but due to the case design and the case shape, the Black Bay 58 seems significantly thicker than the Oris Diver 65. And that's really the only downside that I can think of for the Black Bay 58 because I love pretty much everything else about this. I understand why some people might not like the aesthetic of it. I understand why some people may not like the faux rivets of this thing, but I like everything about this. This entire package is just a ton of fun. So in conclusion, what can I say about this watch that hasn't already been said in the 5,000 other videos on YouTube that have already covered this? I don't know. All I can say is I think this is an outstanding watch, and if this was the only watch that I owned, I would be perfectly happy. Now, I'm sure some people will hate this watch and criticize this watch because it comes across as a bit of a basic bitch watch, I guess. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like the pumpkin spice latte of watches, but that's because it's good. The reason why it's a safe bet, the reason why so many people like it, is because it is a great watch. It is a great value offer here, and I stick by it. I love it. If this was my only watch, I would be perfectly happy with it. And if you're looking for a vintage-inspired dive watch that is time only, and you actually like the vintage aesthetic of this watch and the design of it, then I think it's worth every single penny. And that's going to wrap up for today's video. I have nothing else to say. If you liked this video, thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs down and subscribe. I put out watch videos every fortnight, every 2 weeks, because I'm so busy making mic videos that I don't have time to put out one of these watch videos every single week. And I imagine it would be very expensive to do one every single week, so I cannot do that. Okay, I've got nothing else to say. That's the Black Bay 58. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks! Let me know what you think of it in the comments, and I will talk to you then. Bye.